Hi, this is Gene Lance on the Workers Beat Extra, and I've lined up my good friend Darryl to talk about surveillance. Darryl, how did you find out about this surveillance business?
Well, the first thing was we just kind of started seeing a few news articles. Just the regular legacy media was having some things about it, and then it just kind of came up that in my area there was a guy trying to organize around it and had put up a website. So kind of just surfing around the net, I just kind of came across it in a random kind of way, but it really got my attention pretty quickly.
I wouldn't have heard about it at all, except there was an article in the Dallas newspaper about people who were tearing them down, I think using a pipe cutter and cutting down the poles so that those surveillance cameras would fall down by the side of the highway. And
Well,
it reminded me,
this is a very interesting part of this story as we go forward. In that nationally, there's about 120,000. Now, I didn't miss say that 120,000 of these
thus,
cameras, and they're not the only devices. We'll talk about what else they have, and yet it's kind of under everybody's radar. It hasn't. We've seen, like you said, we see that someone was vandalizing them, and we don't even know what they
yeah.
are. What are they vandalizing? So it's really been kind of under the radar. This has mostly been local city councils that have been approving these contracts. And of course, the flock people are shoveling some money their way in order to be putting these devices in place. So yeah, it's it they but we're becoming more educated every day. So
So the Flock is the company that sells the most of these surveillance cameras. They call them automated license plate readers, ALPRS. And there's more than one company. In fact, Flock may not even be the worst one. They basically read license plates as they go by. They haven't, as far as anybody knows, started using facial recognition, but they obviously could if they wanted
it's
to.
reported that they have that capability.
And you said that cities are getting these, they're buying them, but they're getting funded to get the money to buy them. And where do they get funded from?
Both the state and the federal government have been, the Office of Homeland Security has been promoting these and helping fund them. And then even from at the state level, they're getting so these cities are getting them for pretty much for free. So they like that. And then they're sold on the idea that this is going to help control crimes in your community, which
Uh-huh.
there is no evidence of that whatsoever. There's been no evidence presented that, in fact, they've had any kind of real impact on crimes in our community. And we see that the most concerning thing is that there's almost no oversight on these programs. So they're readily open to abuse, and we've already seen abuses.
That's not what concerns me the most. What concerns me the most is, according to the Dallas paper, hundreds of other agencies are using the Dallas camera information. Hundreds. And that would include
So again,
the,
as a revenue stream to these localities, they're selling the information they get off a flock to third parties. They're selling that
right.
information to third parties,
So they're
and we
selling
don't
it
know we don't we
the
don't know what
FBI.
all we don't know what all the possibilities are on third parties using these applications, but it's the sky's the limit on the opportunity for abuse here.
I can tell you, back in the old days when we were doing anti-war protests against Vietnam, the FBI was regularly seen walking around in parking lots with pencil and paper and writing down people's license numbers. So the government, the surveillance, the oppressive part of the government wants people's license numbers. So much so that they were paying highly paid lawyers with the FBI to walk around in parking lots and write them down. And now they're getting them, streaming them by the thousands of license numbers from all over the United States. And it does go to the repressive forces. ICE is getting them.
I
It's
don't, I
not
don't,
just it's not just the local police.
and when you say that, we have to recognize we're talking about people like Stephen Miller. Stephen Miller, who is openly calling anybody now that's not a mega a communist,
Right.
and red baiting and saying that they must be stopped, that they must be imprisoned, and they're putting the apparatus in place to do exactly that. And we have to take them seriously. We can't just say, "Oh, that's never in America." In America they would never do that, and yet they are not putting these processes in place for no reason. They are putting these processes in place because they fully intend to use them. And they would
Right.
not be spending hundreds of millions of dollars, if not billions of dollars, to put this ICE force in place, to build concentration camps, and to have the ability to track every movement that you do. There is a reason behind this, and we should believe what they say. They say they're going to use
And
it against us if you're woke, if you're left, if you're not patriotic, if you don't go to the right church, that it may be necessary to use all of this apparatus that they're building. And again, we don't believe sometimes that it's even possible that that could happen here. But we better believe what they're telling us.
yeah, and also just in case anybody thinks that cameras on poles by the highway are as far as it goes, that's not true at all. They're mounting these things on drones, aren't they?
They're mounting these on drones. So, in addition to the cameras, I just only found out in the last few days, they also have these sensors in my neighborhood that detect gunshots. So, they're triggered to that specific sound of a gunshot. And that this does not just notify the authorities, this sends a process in motion. Folks, this is not science fiction. Right now, today, in my community, when those are triggered, it releases drones to come and investigate why those devices were triggered. So again, this is tied into a
And
whole
those drones
apparatus.
have cameras. Those drones
The
have cameras.
drone and the drones have flock cameras on them that have the ability for face recognition, that have the ability. We don't even know what all the possibilities of AI in these devices are, but it's going to be surveillance, and it's going to give them the opportunity to use it against their political opponents.
Yeah. And also, you told me yesterday that they're not just reading license plates, that some of those cameras can detect Bluetooth activities, right?
So if you have a hearing aid, if you have a cell phone,
I
if you
do.
have a pacemaker, those devices have identifiers. They have electronic identifiers, and they have the ability, and other devices as well. I didn't. That's not a comprehensive list. If you have any kind of electronic device of any type that has an electronic identifier in it, then they can track your every movement through those identifiers. And so
So
let's
it's
give
not
an
just,
example of what that means right now today. We have an example in the state of Texas now where it's against the law to receive an abortion. It's against the law in the state of Texas. There's also laws in the books in the state of Texas that you could be held accountable for having an abortion in another state by they can bring a suit against you and take everything you own. And they can use the flock cameras. So in Texas, you might go to New Mexico, okay? And you could leave Dallas, Texas, and go to New Mexico to have an abortion, and they have the ability to track and watch you do that. They will know. You may go to Colorado to buy some weed. You can't have weed in Texas. They're going to have, so these are hooked up to national networks that anybody can, or that who they say can access them. Third parties can access this information and sell it, and they can track your activities anywhere you go in the country, and then they could be waiting for you at your doorstep when you come back home.
yeah.
That's right now. This isn't
I
this
do
isn't
have hearing.
sci-fi stuff. This is right now.
Yeah. I do have hearing aids. And so it's not just my license plate that they're catching. when I go by certain cameras, they're finding it's me, and I might be in somebody else's car. But if I've got my hearing aids on and they're activated, then they can still spot me.
But
And don't forget, this is being shared with the repressive forces throughout the country.
they have better technology that they're implementing right now than what we read in 1984. In 1984, in the novel 1984, you couldn't have done what they did with the technology that they have right now. They have better surveillance technology than they could have even imagined.
Yeah, and in that book, they basically just had uh, taps. You know, they had webcams and taps to hear you and to see you. And of course, we've had that for some time. But now they're gathering complete information about everybody and every move that they make.
And no
And
oversight. There is no oversight in these programs.
if we were dealing with a government that was not already knee deep in dictatorship and heading more toward dictatorship, we might have a little bit different attitude about this. But the truth is, when we have a government that may very well declare martial law just over anything, and is raiding other countries and bombing and killing children. You know, in the same conversation we had yesterday, I learned that 20,000 Arab children have been killed since October 7th. And that's by the same guys that have got your information, that are getting your information. So this all kind of fits together into a
Well, I
kind
know
of
just today, I don't know what you saw on the news today, but just today, Trump's throwing a fit about the dropping of charges against a guy for destroying state. He picked up a piece of floating paint out of a reflecting pool in D.C. and they want to lock him up. They want to lock him up for a long time
All
because
right.
they don't want to cut. They're afraid that it's going to come out of their incompetence and their ability to even put down the material that they did in that pool. It's peeling up on its own. It was a crappy no bid job. So, but again, we can't trust the state at this point or what their motivations are. They're even under the most minor things like the paint in a reflecting pool. They're wanting to lock up and make felony charges out of it for years. So it's serious. Their intent. We have got to take these forces seriously.
If we have a government that is looking for people to frame and they know where everybody's been, they've got all this information. It's pretty easy to do. They can say, "Well, you were
But
there," you
we've
know.
already seen instances, and out in L.A. there were already documented instances. Maybe you're sitting at home and you're thinking, I don't have anything to worry about. I'm not involved in anything. The government's not going to take. We see instances where police officers that had access to these systems are using it to monitor their wives. They're using it to monitor their girlfriends. Again, there's no oversight in these programs. We don't know who has access to them. We don't know. And again, within smaller communities or the police force, the idea that maybe you don't particularly have anything to worry about because you've never been to a protest in your life. And it's just not the case. We don't, the far reaching effects of this are really beyond what we could even express right now.
Okay, let's talk before we sign off on this. Let's try to add something positive. It's kind of hard to find anything positive in a mess like this, but there are a couple of organizations that are starting to fight back. And I saw one of them. They're putting up signs uh, under the cameras just so that people will know that they're being surveilled. And it's a group. The signs say that they are coming from an organization called deflock.com, I think.
Yeah.
Deflock.com. And locally, the person that you were talking about that held a meeting that you went to has started a website called Deflock DFW, Dallas Fort Worth. dflockdfw.com. And and people are starting to find out a little bit about this, and that's what you and I are doing right now, making something that people can see and find out that they're being surveilled and
Well,
that
again,
this information,
we're not seeing a great deal about this on the media or being very well covered.
yeah.
But I would suggest the place to start if you're wanting to get involved. Ask your city council person. Find out does your city have a contract with FLOT? Are they considering getting a contract with FLOT? What are the oversights that they're proposing to put to control those devices in your community? Again, with 120,000 cameras, there's a good chance they're already in your community, and you may not have even noticed it or ever thought about it. But and ask your representative. Not again, this is local. This isn't just about writing your city, your senator, or someone like that maybe you don't see. This is about people right in they are doing this through city contracts. So find out who your city council person is, and find out what their position is on this.
Okay. And there is one city in this area here near Dallas where they've already rejected the cameras. I believe that's Carrollton has already done it. And I've been following this and since you first put me onto it. And I want you to bring one more point because you mentioned to me this is not just a bunch of socialists. This is not just a bunch of progressives. It's concerned, it's a concern of a larger spread of different people and ideologies, right?
Well, me and you've been friends for a very long time now, longer than I care to remember sometimes. And we've been active in any number of issues through the years, but I have never been to a meeting in all of those years that had such a cross section of people at it that I went to last week on this DFLOC camera. There were libertarians there, there were Republicans there were just people that didn't particularly have any kind of political ideology there. I have never in all my years seen an issue because the idea is nobody likes the idea of an oppressive state. Nobody likes the idea of being watched all the time by the government. It's a fundamental thing of being an American. And when we talk about freedom, we've always understood that freedom meant that we weren't under constant surveillance from our government. That when we went to the grocery store, we weren't going to be asked, "Show me your papers." I mean, we know the kind of imagery that we have when we use that phraseology, and yet here we are walking headlong right into those type of situations. Show me your papers. Where have you been today? What did you do? Why did you make this stop over here? And we're not in America, we expect that we're not going to be questioned on that. It's none of your business why I'm going down to the hardware store or what I'm buying down there. I got to fix my toilet and I don't want to talk to you about it. So, and I shouldn't have to talk to you about it. So, we understand this fundamentally as Americans, not as liberals or conservatives, no, or any of that. This issue really does have far-reaching opportunities to create coalitions, and that everyone should be concerned about this.
Okay. So we've been talking about what we usually call flock cameras, although there are other companies that make them, and surveillance in general, and the use of that surveillance to create dictatorship in America. Thank you, Darryl, for coming on and talking to me about it. And we'll try to keep getting the word out. Okay?
All right, sounds good. People out there, stay informed, pay attention, keep your head on a swivel, stay involved.